What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In the last video, I got all of the Brembo calipers off of the Evo 10 painted. They turned out very, very nice. I didn't want these things going back on the car with some crappy rusted rotors. So I did order some new drilled and slotted rotors and some new pads to go in the calipers. For this video, I'll be getting the new rotors installed. I'll get the new pads in the calipers. I'm gonna get the Brembos on the car and then get them bled. Stay tuned. If you didn't see the last video of me painting the calipers, definitely go check that one out. This is one of my best paint jobs yet. I'm so excited with how these things came out. I cannot wait to get them back on the car. A few videos ago, I also painted the wheels for the Evos, so they are right over here. I went with a gloss black on those. I've got a couple of spots I need to touch up on them, but for the most part, they turned out really well also. With all this fresh paint and as nice as everything's looking, I did not want to throw them back on there with these crappy rotors. I went with these drilled and slotted rotors from Power Stop, and then I went ahead and got new pads for the front and rear as well. It's not really a braking upgrade because there's no actual performance with these things. It's not going to stop any better. However, from an aesthetics point of view, these things are going to look much, much nicer than these behind those wheels. I obviously have the first two rotors already off. I didn't have to do anything to get them off. Neither of the front ones were seized on there, so when I pulled the caliper off, the rotor just came right off with it. For these back ones back here, everybody seems to be having problems with getting them off. From my understanding, it's the e-brake components that are back behind there that are kind of keeping it stuck on. I'm going to hit it with some PB Blaster just to kind of loosen up all this rust in these areas that may be stuck. And I'm just going to kind of pop it with a rubber mallet, and then it also has these two holes right here that you can put a screw in to kind of help back it out. I'm going to go ahead and get both of the rear rotors off, and then what I want to do is actually clean up behind there. Since these new rotors are going on, I don't want them mating up against this really rusty surface. OEM rotors are off. They actually came off much easier than I thought they would. I did not have to use the screws at all, just a dead blow hammer from the back. Hit it a few times, spin it a little bit, hit it a few times, spin it a little bit, hit it again, and eventually it just pops right off. These drum brakes are just for the emergency brake, so it's not like they get used a whole bunch. I went ahead and cleaned everything up with this brake clean really good. Just hit it and then wiped everything down. Ordered some wire brushes off of Amazon that I just kind of used to get some of the rust off. And then the last thing that I did is lubed everything up so that it doesn't make any noises. Again, these drum brakes are just for the emergency brake, so it's not like they're going to be used all the time, but I went ahead and put some copper anti-seize on the back there. And then for the hubs, so that it doesn't rust later on, I put a little bit of anti-seize in between all of the wheel studs. For the front, same thing, except I have less to mess with because there's no drum brake. It's just a little bit of anti-seize in between the studs. So the next thing that I want to do is get the new rotors on, and then I want to go ahead and get the calipers on. This is my first caliper paint job, so I've never taken them off or put them on before, so I've been debating on whether or not to put the pads in first and then put the calipers on, or put the calipers on first and then put the pads in afterwards. I still have to remove this plug and the washer where I masked it off for paint, and then I've got to reconnect the brake line here. And I'm afraid if I go ahead and put the pads in now, when I go to actually put them on the rotors, it's going to squeeze it some and it's going to push all of that out, and I don't want it getting on the new paint. I would rather go ahead and connect the brake line up first, then put the pads in afterwards. That way, if it compresses any, it'll just push backwards and then I can bleed the lines later on. rotors and calipers are on the car. Everything actually went on a lot smoother than what I thought it was going to be. Here's the driver's side over here and the back side. Super stoked to finally have these things back on the car. I love this orange. It's gonna look so good once I get the wheels on there. Now that the rotors are on and calipers are back on, I can go ahead and work on getting the pads installed. All of the new pads are in, rears and the fronts up here as well. Everything went in super smooth. I did do a couple of things different. The manual that I found online said to put the wear indicator on the outside, but for aesthetics reasons, and I know I'm not going to be driving this car as much as I'd like to, so these pads should last me a long time. So I did put the wear indicator on the back side so that you can't see it sticking out. These front pads did come with new hardware. They came with a new middle piece here, and then they also came with new pins, but I didn't like the way that they looked, so I went ahead and cleaned the old piece right here, and I cleaned the old pins and reused those. These original pins have this little divot right here where it sits in the middle of that bracket, and the new pins, they were just a solid piece all the way across, and I didn't like that, so again, that's why I reused them. For the rears, they did come with new retaining clips, but they did not come with new pins, so you do have to reuse the pins that you already have. Did, however, use the new retaining clips there. The old ones were kind of busted up, and they have this gold looking tint to them, so I liked the silver look better, and they matched the front ones. As far as lubrication goes, I may have went a little bit overboard, but I did put the anti-seize, the copper anti-seize on all of the pads, any place that metal is going to contact metal, so I did put it on the back here. I also put it on the back of the little shim that goes in between here, and then I put it on both sides and then a little bit on the top right here. It says it's not necessary for these pins. For my slide pins in the past, I put a little bit of this on there, so I did put just a little bit where it goes through the pad. Just want to make sure that I don't get any unnecessary squeaks. Now that all the pads are fully installed, the last thing that I've got to do is get all of the brake system bled. Again, something I've never done before, so it does make me a little bit nervous. For most cars, I believe the sequence is passenger rear, driver rear, passenger front, and then the driver front, because it's the furthest from the master cylinder, and then you just work your way to the closest. From everything that I have read online, the Evo 10s are different, and it should be the same for the Evo 8s, 9s, but you bleed the driver side rear first, then it goes up to the passenger front, then back to the passenger rear, and then to the driver front. And then for these Brembos, since they do have pistons on both sides, you bleed the outside first and then the inside on each one. At some point, I may invest in some sort of brake bleeding tool, but for now, I don't have anything, so I will be doing the two-person method. Grandma and Grandpa have been watching Jagger today, so Grandpa is going to be dropping him off, and he will be assisting me with this. bleeding the brakes, pops had to take off already. No issues at all bleeding these things. I replaced the original fluid with this Prestone Max .4 fluid. I don't plan on racing this thing, but it is rated for a little bit higher heat. For anyone else that has never bled brakes before and you're watching this, these are the things that I found out. I was originally going to try it with a one-person method, and I was going to try to use this little vacuum. It never did work. Every time I would put it on the nipple and try to turn it on, it just kind of dribbled out. It was working, but it didn't suck it through like it should have. The suction pressure may not be great enough for it to actually pull it through there. Little vacuum still came in handy because once you're done bleeding it, it leaves a little bit of fluid up top here, so I could turn the machine on, and as I pulled it off of the bleeder screw, it wouldn't get everywhere. But the two-person method works great. Pops helped me out. It worked perfect. What I did for each caliper, like I already said, you start with the outside bleeder first and then work your way to the inside. And then for this Evo, this is the one you start with. Pops would pump the brakes 3 times, and on the 3rd time, hold it down, crack the bleeder screw, and then close it off, and then pump it 3 more times. I did that about 5 or 6 times on the outside screw, and then once you do the inside screw, you only have to do that one about 2 or 3 times. Same thing for all of the other calipers, and then like I said already, also for the Evo, it starts with the driver's side rear, goes to the passenger side front, comes back to the passenger rear, and then over to the driver front. And then make sure to refill the reservoir in between each bleeder screw. Last thing I did after I did the last bleeder screw, which is the inside driver's side over here, I filled the reservoir up to the max fill line. I've already tested it out. It does feel pretty firm. Obviously, I can't fully test it since they're not on the ground. Debated so hard on just taking these things to have them powder coated, or the wheels, take those to have those powder coated. But I am so excited that I did everything myself, and maybe it is because it is my car, but this whole setup just turned out incredibly sick. I absolutely love the orange. I love the rotors. I just cannot wait to get the wheels finished up and get them on there. I don't have the center caps finished up just yet, but I am going to throw a couple of them on there just to see what it looks like. For anyone who stayed to the end of the video, here it is. I mean, come on. That looks amazing. I cannot wait to get the rest of this finished up. Take this thing out for a little cruise. It's been literally sitting on jack stands for almost 3 months. These things look absolutely insane. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button. If you want to see these wheels get finished up, go back on the Evo and go for a little drive in the next video. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you guys next time.